What is up, everybody? Hunter Orrell here, and we are joined today with a very, very special guest. Pindar Van Arman is an American artist and roboticist based in Washington, D.C. He's in Texas currently, and his art focuses on designing, painting robots. And I think why I'm so excited for, to have him here today is a lot of what we see in the art community and NFTs and a lot of art is purely somebody doing it with their hands and their skills, but what we're seeing here is the merge between artificial intelligence, the merge between robotics, technologies being pushed to their limits, and all these different things colliding into one to produce very unique pieces that, in my opinion, are some of the coolest looking pieces out there. He's also known I think you were one of the first 13 or 14 artists on SuperRare. So you're not new to the space. You've been around. You understand crypto. You've recently got some shout outs from big names in the space. You've recently dropped some projects, big sales on SuperRare. I'm just so excited to have you here and chat with you and get to know more about you. And hopefully to educate people on who you are and what you do and what you're all about.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Hunter. I appreciate that. It is crazy. I've been with everyone on this in crypto, even from before SuperRare. I think my first projects were putting stuff on the BTC chain, the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's been so many projects that just disappeared. And I don't know why I've always been drawn to it. Maybe it's just because I like working in technology and AI and robotics, and Bitcoin was just another thing that was interesting. With the blockchain was, I don't know what it was, but it's been fun making art for a number of years doing this.
Yeah. So how I got to ask you, most people that I talk to that go the tech route or go the artistic route never think about doing both or branching into the other. How did you start? Were you in tech, robotics, coding?
Hey, it's one of those lucky things where so I was a graphic designer way back in 2000. It's obviously still a graphic designer, but I was a graphic designer during the dot-com when it was going crazy, right at 2001, 2000. And I just found myself in a company where they really needed programmers, and there's not enough programmers to go around. And I was a graphic designer. I was like, I'll try it. And I was surprised. I can't believe how easy programming came to me. I was one of those lucky people that it just made sense. It was easy. I got to bury my head into something for a couple hours all day. No one bothered me. And it just was a natural fit. So I started off as graphic designer, artist, painter, and slid into coding software.
I love that. And so, that's kind of how you got your merge into, that kind of aspect of things. Talk to me about being so early on SuperRare, getting into NFTs. Crypto is one thing, but the kind of jump into NFTs and to be so early, what was that like early on for you?
I miss it. I miss it because none of us. It's funny. It's like one of those. I think we're all of us in there that were making NFTs on SuperRare back then. We didn't know any of the rules. We were just winging it, making stuff up as we went along. No one was buying our stuff, so we're just trading like left and right. I think I always joke that the worst. Everyone thinks they've made bad trades. I had X copies of Order, a Genesis piece. And I had it so early. I just had it, and then all of a sudden, I was talking to X copy, and I was like, "Someone wants to pay $1,000 for this. Can you believe it?" And he's like, "Yeah, did get rid of it?" And I was like, "Definitely." And that's like we all have that trade that went away. But back then it was like we didn't understand what was going on. It was really collegial. It was really fun. There was no, what's cool is like right now, as an artist, sometimes I'm worried about failures or drops going back. Back then it didn't matter because nothing was working. It was just a bunch of people minting things, talking to each other.
It wasn't about, it definitely, I don't get the vibe from the people that were there then so early. It wasn't about money. It was just about creating. And it seemed like it was just a community of, uplifting. So we're still in that, but everybody was just kind of like there to have fun. And, that was it. Like there was no other expectations. It wasn't like, is it going to sell? Are we going to sell? Am I going to have a collection? People are going to want it. Is it going to have resale value?
That didn't even occur to us. It's interesting. And Hackatow was the first one to start seeing it when I was living in Israel. He was the first one to start realizing that there was like, that this wasn't just an experiment, there was something like really interesting here. He started saying stuff like, he has that one piece where it's like, everyone can see it, but only one can own it. And I just think his awareness of all that, like, really started elevating it, and making the rest of us think about it differently. There was one thing though, I'll share this, because this is one thing that always made me feel like an outsider. Even then, it's like, even as one of the first SuperRare artists, I always felt like an outsider because, as you can see, like, every other artist was purely digital. They're natively digital. They didn't bother with anything physical. And I was this AI artist that I would start digital, and then the digital would, like, go through my robot arms and end up on a canvas. And all my early SuperRare tokens are photos of canvases, photos of paintings. And I had to talk to the founders of SuperRare and make sure they were okay with that. So I always felt like I was on the outside, on the periphery. Here was this digital revolution, and I was an old-fashioned artist doing a little weird stuff, but ultimately old-fashioned, trying to sell canvases. And it made me feel like, all artists, I think, to a point, feel like outsiders, but it made me feel like it wasn't the right fit, and I wasn't sure. And I also felt like I was more of a, this is interesting. Everyone else on SuperRare, I felt they saw themselves as crypto artists. I think the terms even started coming up. At the time, I saw myself as an AI artist that sold with crypto. And it took me a couple of years to realize that it's the opposite. I'm a crypto artist that likes AI. And there's so many reasons. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that.
And so maybe, I mean, for the people that are listening, what was the thing that made that click or that change in your mental thought process there?
I go to a lot of, talks or shows or be in a lot of conferences or like AI art, and I have a lot of colleagues in AI, and they have just different. In no way anything I say should be seen as a criticism of any of these artists, because I love them and they're a big influence on me. But a big focus of AI is, how technical is your neural net algorithm, or how many layers are you using in your GAN? What's the resolution? It feels so technical, and I never really cared about the technical. I cared about the rebellious stuff. I cared about the fact that I love it when I love crash art. I just love crash art when they're going nuts trying to piss people off. Rob just matches Cyrus. I just love it. And so you start realizing the art that you're attracted to, and there's this one genre of art, AI, where it's like it's really, really technical based, and they're really trying to explore how technical AI can get. And on the other hand, you have people making images of trash cans and putting it on SuperRare to piss off the copyright police. And I just found myself I just kept on finding myself in the crypto art camp. Just so much more entertaining, so much more interesting. And it was almost as if art was reinventing itself, like from scratch, from SuperRare Token 1, or even earlier, there's always time, but like from the earliest NFTs, the whole art movement was reinventing itself.
Right.
Meaning like starting at zero and going through every stage of the greater art movement. It's just been really interesting, really fun.
Right.
And that was the realization. The realization was just more interesting.
That's so interesting. You just mentioned, Breeder Art or artbreeder.com, which is, open source, free to use to anybody, artificial intelligence, Gantt network. For artists, you can basically generate your own animations or your own single pieces using AI. There's been some controversy among the community. I think some people think that, going on there and using that is valid art creation. Some people think that it is, it's skillless and you're just going on there and clicking buttons until you get something cool. What do you think? Do you think that that's a valid tool to use, or do you think, it's just a good exploration into AI for beginners?
No, I think it's fine. Because like in the end, it's how good you use that tool. And like with a lot of the AI, hear a lot of artists talk about this, it's how you get the data ready for those tools, for the GANs, for the style transfers. You gotta prep the images beforehand. And like even my most recent projects, the BitCans, I had to make 1,000 pixelated images. And you could use these art breeder sites or what's the other, there's several of them. But unless you make the good data to begin with, it's not going to look good. And there's definitely, when I look at AI artists, I can definitely see an AI artist. This is me just with a lot of experience. I can definitely see if they're using someone else's images, or if they've used their own images. And I'm impressed when I can use a guy. I think they use their own images, like say a photographer trained their own network with 1,000 photos. That's really impressive, right? Because they went out and took 1,000 photos that were similar enough to each other that they could be made into a GAN, but different enough that it's not boring. So yeah, I think I can see the skill in it between the different people. I can see the difference between someone just dumping a bunch of images into one of those programs and someone prepping a bunch of images into that program.
Right.
Like I actually, Bart Ionis is a master. I don't know what he uses. I think he uses all sorts of different things. He's another artist on SuperRare. But I've learned so many tricks from him on how to prep images for GANs that it's definitely a skill.
It is. Yeah. And I think for everybody who's listening, the one thing in artificial intelligence that I think is heavily overlooked, everybody thinks about the model and the design, but the data is just as important, because you put trash in, you're going to get trash out.
Exactly.
It's such a, to the average person, it's just such a hard concept to get of why are you spending so much time making sure your data set or your images that you're using, the stuff you're using to train on, is perfect. And it's just because you're not going to get what you want out if you don't start with what you want. And I'm glad you brought that up. I think, and also not everybody here is, has the background in AI. So I think it's cool to kind of understand some of this so that they can appreciate it. Because personally, and I'm curious on your opinion, I think a lot of the stuff that we see coming out of art blocks is totally just based on, well, does it look cool? Or does it vibe with me? But I've taken a different kind of stance, and I'm curious on your opinion here is, we value the looks, but I think the other half of that is, how technical is the algorithm? How unique is it? Is it, pushing the boundaries? Is it doing something cool? I think that adds a lot of value to this artwork. And so when I look at what you're doing, understanding that these are not simple out of the box, Google to like TensorFlow, research algorithms, like these are, you've worked them over, gone and put effort into them. That adds a tremendous amount of value.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm good. You say I like TensorFlow, so I do use a little TensorFlow, but everyone that's Google's solution to like how you make neural networks, and they have a kit for it. But yeah, but I do fall on the non-technical side of things, Hunter. I think that meaning like I think it's not about how technical the algorithm is. First of all, here's what's awesome about art blocks. Like I was baffled by it for a little bit, then I started looking into it and I realized what's really going on. It's amazing. It's easy to make one good piece of, this is my art blocks of prediction. Those with AI. It's easy to make one piece of art that looks good. It's hard to make a series of 10. It is remarkably hard. I can't even imagine to make 10,000 good-looking pieces of art. All of them consistently good. But then again, some of them better than others. And then also, and that's it. So how do you make 10,000 pieces of art that are all consistently good with some better than others? And if you can find an algorithm to do that, you have a very popular series like Cadenza. And I love it. And I was like, wow. And I've taken that influence recently and challenged myself with it. How do I make myself make a series that it has, I forgot to mention the last thing, it's not just like consistently good, but every single one has to be independent of the other 9,999.
Right.
So it has to be distinct from each other, but also all good. And that is no easy feat, especially at 10,000. That's crazy. I mean, if I did a series of 10,000, I doubt I'd even have enough time to look at all 10,000.
Right.
So how they did that, I don't know. It takes a ridiculous amount of skill. So those are algorithms, and they're not that complicated. And like I was saying, the critique I have of the AI art world is there's an emphasis on how fast, how big, how high resolution the art is. I think it's much more simple than that. I don't even work in high resolution. I work at probably less than 500 pixels by 500 pixels on the robot things. And I think it's like, because I don't think our brains work in that. So, well, I don't have no idea what our brains do. But the robot, here's the thing that my robot does, and this is the key to its AI is it has, instead of one really fancy big algorithm with a lot of neural networks, I have more than 24 small, simple, little like creative modules. And creative modules are everything from GANs and style transfer neural networks, networks that make, can paint like a style, to something as simple as something that takes a photo. There's a camera right on the robot, takes a photo of the canvas and looks for places with low contrast. And then it gives itself a little, like, it's not just that area needs more contrast. Another simple algorithm is it looks for the eyes and the areas around the eyes. That's facial recognition to paint with more detail. So it gets softer, sharper strokes. If I painted with the detail around the eyes everywhere, it wouldn't look that nice. It's just a painterly thing.
Right.
So instead of a massive, big algorithm, the robot knows what it wants to paint. It poses itself right in front of the canvas like it is now, takes a photo, and then thinks about what to do next to make that canvas look more like what's in its memory, and then pulls from its 24 different tools just to start putting paint on the canvas. And then it does about 10, sometimes 100 strokes. Stop, takes another photo, say, how am I doing? Does the canvas look any more like what's in my memory? And it keeps on going. And there's nothing, what's crazy about that is, as I describe this to anyone here, go and do that with your own, like start with a really simple algorithm, start with something that does nothing but contrast, and you will have the coolest painting robot, because your painting robot would go, take a photo of the canvas, say, hey, I need more black there, and there. It'll go add black to wherever it needs to, and then take another photo of canvas. Do that again over and over again, and then it would finally take a photo of the canvas and say, oh, this is too black, I need white over there. And if you just wrote that simple algorithm, it would paint anything you gave it. It would just, it would make areas darker, areas lighter until you
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's simple black and white, painting.
Yeah. And so it's not that complicated AI, but it's probably really close to what a lot of artists do. I mean,
Right.
I know I put some marks on the canvas, I take a step back, I see good or bad, and then I put more marks on it. It's just
Right.
that.
Right.
So
it's not all one go. It's, art is a very kind of like step, reflect, and it's always, it's a loop.
Yeah.
It's AI. It's a loop.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing. I think that I'm waiting. It's funny is I'm waiting for other scientists to do something that that creative. But when you talk to the academics and you go into the AI art world, it's not measurable. And if it's not measurable as a metric, they're just not interested in it as a research topic. So not much work is getting done on it. Like, how do you know what the feedback loop is? How do you know which of the 24 to choose? Is there a formula? This just wings it. It just wings it. And just
do you think we're heading though to a direction where that's more, we'll have a younger generation or people in college right now are looking at this and saying, oh, I don't want to go into something that's measurable. I want to go into something that's more emotional and artistic.
Right. I don't know. I hope. Yeah, or something like softer logic. I forget the name of that, but like fuzzy logic. Like I mean, when it's straight logic, you just get the same results every time. How do we add this fuzzy logic in there that it makes mistakes? The coolest thing about this robot is you'll see the reason it's at 45 degrees is very intentional. It's because the paint's drip. And then the paint drip becomes part of the feedback. It'll take a picture and I'll see the difference. Like, whoa, what's going on there? I better go repair that. And so it's almost like this feedback loop. I want to add serendipity and chance into the feedback loop without generating a random number. So it gets its random number by what the paint's doing on the canvas.
That's so cool. So you're actually introducing, impurities or mistakes and things. You're making it more authentic, and the robot's got, it's got to react to it. It's got to identify and change. So is that the robot right behind you there over your shoulder?
Yeah, it's one of them. Yeah.
So I see there's a painting at a 45-degree angle. It looks like you have some BitCans there that are being painted.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. It's a small machine, but simple.
Yeah. No, it's anything bigger, I think, becomes a safety hazard. And I would like bigger, but I have kids running around, and this one will just. I have kids running around that love being in the studio, and I don't know how to tell them no. So I just. It's good for me. It does as big as I want. It's 18 inches by 18 inches, or actually it does 20 inches by 20 inches, but I choose to do 18 by 18. If I needed a bigger, and the reason it does as big as I want is an 18 by 18 takes 2 to 3 days to finish.
Okay.
So, the laws of squares, if I went to double that size, we're looking at a week and a half to finish.
Right.
So I'm not interested in that. I am interested in having bigger brushes and finishing something much bigger in a shorter time. But right now the focus is on just is on the size, squares, making grids, doing portraits. It seems to be the right proportions.
Yeah. It's super fascinating to me. So you're, I mean, again, you mentioned this at the beginning, like you're operating not purely in the digital world. But your latest project, I mean, your original project, I think that were on BTC, those were physical pieces, correct?
They were, yeah, and I gave them all away. So it was with I did a couple things with Bitcoin. One of them was, this was awesome, is I had this thing called a crowd painter, and it was I hooked the robot up to the computer, the internet. Anyone can come and take it over. I did that for about 2 years. And it was really fun. People would try and hack the machine, and I had this crazy idea. I was like, hey, listen, if you want to, and I was selling on eBay for a couple $100, but never any of these crowd painters. But somewhere, but I had this idea. It's like, I'm gonna run this like a slot machine. You donate a little Bitcoin, I let you make a couple strokes, and then you own that percentage of the canvas. And then, sort of like almost like fractionalization, so big today. And then only 2 people ever did it. And the canvas never sold, so it sort of like died and nothing came of it. But that was the first experiment with Bitcoin. And then after that, I was just like, I think in early 2018, there was a way to, with VeriSign, there was a way to like put your art on the Bitcoin blockchain. A fan of Kevin Bosch back then, and I was hearing more and more like he did I am a token, I think that's the name of the work, where he made a token out of his blood, or he sold it, and it appealed to me, and I tried it, and I made 128 prints and put them on the blockchain, and give the prints out, and each print had a tag on it with a certificate that would tell everyone where they could find it on the blockchain. But I'm not sure what utility it did. It was more like a record. It was just like
Right.
It was just like, this happened. Something happened in this event with this code, and then you'd have this code on the back of your painting. And that was it. There was no
real
follow.
representation, just an indicator, really.
Yeah, it's just like an indicator of provenance. That's it.
Right.
And then of course, like 2 years later, I go look at them. And I still have all the certificates, but when I go to the site,
it says page not
down.
found, or asset not found. Yeah. So Dylan was showing me that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could go look and find it on the blockchain. I just haven't put the effort into it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I'd love to talk about your most recent things that you've had been going on here. The one, I'll pull it up and share it on the screen just so that the viewers on YouTube can check it out. You just launched this project, 128 items. They're called BitCans. And one, you didn't just throw these out there and cause gas wars. You actually had to sign up for a whitelist through your Discord. And then you randomly chose each of these. You had to go and bid on all 128, I believe.
Wanted them, yeah.
And if you randomly got selected, you were awarded the piece at 0.1 ETH. I mean, talk us through this. I mean, this is some of the coolest looking art. I was there bidding. I know that I had a discussion with other people such as like Beanie and Tropo and these other collectors about this stuff. We're all kind of blown away. I mean, the genesis of the idea to the execution would be great to understand.
Okay, great. It's funny. This work was probably the culmination of realizing I'm a crypto artist, a more crypto artist than AI artist. But that series I was just talking about was called, that I did in 2018, actually won an international award. It was called AI Imagined Faces. It was a generative adversarial network where the robot would imagine a human face and paint it. And it painted lots of them. In fact, it painted for the series I have on Bitcoin, 128 of them, just like this 128. And the faces look ghostly. And the cool thing about generative adversarial network scans is that in the very beginning, most people are like concerned at the end when things start looking cool, but in the very beginning, it's static. It looks like a bunch of static. And then out of the static, small images appear, and then the images come into focus, and all of a sudden it becomes a face. And that's what you're looking at here. It's like instead of that earlier project was trained on 128 faces, celebrity faces. This one was trained on about 1,000 pieces of pixel art of skulls that I made myself. So it's a completely unique set of 8-bit pixel art skulls. I trained them, and I just love how I capture the moment where the game's trying to find a skull, a pattern of a skull in the chaos, and this is what it sees, and this is what it finds, and it just cycles through them. And I'm not sure why it's so appealing, but I love looking at them. Everyone seems to love looking at them. I have one theory. One theory is that everyone loves GANs because it's cool, it does cool things, and maybe it's how our brains work in a stream like. And everyone loves 8-bit pixel art. So here it is, like super high tech neural networks mixed with 1980s nostalgia, and then it's kind of cool. It's colorful, and yeah, and for me it's full circle because this is like in 2018 I was really heavy into doing the celebrity faces and making a bunch of portraits of faces coming out of it. And now I'm like totally in the middle of this crypto culture, totally in love with it. And everyone knows that PFPs are the hottest thing right now. And
Right.
so like here it is like my contribution like to the PFP movement with mixing it with my own art and then finding something that's really interesting, 8-bit pixel art. So that's the background of this story. And then it turned into something much bigger. Then I started the Discord and I started talking to everyone and we started realizing there's a story here. And the story can be like, can go from drop to drop. And I have this first world problem and everyone's going to groan and hate me for this. But here it is. Everyone's don't groan and hate me for this because it is a first world problem. I'm on SuperRare. I make paintings with my robots and they take a long time. So I never, this is a weird thing. Since I have the robot, I don't have editions. I don't do editions. And it's really hard to be a successful crypto artist when you don't have editions. It's a personal choice. I don't judge anyone that does editions, but I have everything I have in front of one. I did a couple of editions like a year ago and I bought them all back and burned them. So everything's a one-on-one. So how do you reach a broad audience when it takes you 2 weeks to make a piece of art and that piece of art only goes on SuperRare? And so I had this challenge, and this is the first world challenge, is that I had very few pieces of art and they were all very expensive. I think the floor was 40 ETH at the time. You can only get one of my works on SuperRare for 40 ETH. The people that like me are people that I've been artists with forever, like Xcopy, Hacked Up pieces, Cody has pieces, and they're not selling. So I can't get into a broader audience. And so the idea behind these BitCans is like, this was like the best idea, obviously, because it's so popular. I've had a long time. I am going to continue to make my 1/1s on SuperRare, and they're going to take a month or 2 weeks or a month. But I have all this training data that the robot uses to paint. And I was going to just make those one-of-one editions. Like here's 128 pieces of training data that my robot used to paint the painting that's sitting on there right now, and that went into a SuperRare one-of-one. And I'm going to just get it to whoever wants it at a reasonable price as possible and let it go. And it sort of backfired because I did this with noun GANs. Not backfired, it went great. I did it with noun GANs, exact same thing. I did 64 noun GANs, which were a derivative of the nouns project. And I thought it would drop my floor, but that project, the floor is 15 ETH. And even this is like, I think it would like bring my floor to be affordable. And I think the floor is, I don't even know what it is. Let's check it.
The floor is 4.25.
Yeah,
So I mean, like it's, as somebody who doesn't own a piece of yours, and it's funny as you're talking about floor price, your SuperRare auction the other day, going for 21 ETH, to Anonymous, that's, I think that kind of just shows your demand. Like, it's not like the people that know about you, willing to pay that much. The fact that you gave these away essentially for 0.1, like you could have, gotten away. There are people, there are bids on all these for 0.3. It shows that you're trying to get new people in. It's not about the money. It's not about, it's more about like expanding your collector base.
Yeah, I want, yeah, totally. And And how do I do that? People keep on asking me for editions. When are my next editions? And I've never had a good answer. So this was like, and I made this commitment, and I'll make it again. These will never go up in price. And so, if anyone's hoping to get them, just hang. I'm going to try and get these out with every piece, a whole set of the training data, and it's always going to be accessible. And the SuperRare is going to be the stuff that's I pays for my studio. But man, the response is so positive. It's the most fun I've ever had. Everyone's on the Discord, looking forward to it. People are sharing theirs. I get a big kick out. I can't even believe it when I see all these PFPs popping up on Twitter that are these. That's probably the biggest thrill, because when I do a portrait, like the biggest compliment is when someone decides to put it as their PFP on anywhere. So that means they like it. So yeah, it's kind of a surreal experience right now, because I've always been this journeyman artist, but I've never had this thing where people are just going nuts for things. Yeah, there's the 0-128, the final painting mixed with the GAN that generated it. And there's a whole story that's behind this that I'm just gonna expand chapter by chapter. And so every single chapter is gonna be an exploration of the crypto arts. And I think the next one might be the BitCans explore the Fibonacci sequence, because I'm a math nerd. But I think the next one's gonna explore, the next series of BitCans is gonna explore cryptography, and just go a little into cryptography and have a little play on a bunch of concepts in cryptocurrency and cryptography in general.
I love it. It's exciting. I mean, like I said, I think maybe my draw to you is having a tech background. I think the draw to a lot of people that aren't tech based is the fact that it is, again, tech based, and there's so much happening behind the scenes that you can't really tell. And how advanced the creation here of this is. It's just mind boggling. I mean, to be quite honest, I hold this at a grail status.
Oh, wow. Nice.
This is up there, and of course, the pricing isn't reflected, but I hold this up there with, a Punk or a Fidenza, just because of the complexity of it to me. And that's why, and again, if it sounds like I'm pumping my bags or just, putting out, it really blows my mind that there are artists with this kind of talent, this kind of crazy background to how they're created that aren't known about. And my Discord was blowing up today when I mentioned this, and what the heck? Why have you known about this guy for 2 weeks? Why aren't you told us about him? I'm like, well, I've been doing research. I'm learning about him.
Yeah,
a little bit of the BitCan stuff. I didn't want to ruin my chances by sending 1,000 people there, but it's just so cool. And to see the drips here and understand that this is, hours and hours and hours of work by a robot that's been trained, and it's every couple minutes it's looking to see contrast, and it's trying to see look at the eyes, add more detail. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I think why I had no idea how well, setting everything at 0.1 and just letting it go. It couldn't have went better. I mean, it just couldn't have went better. And everyone got into it, and it's accessible to everyone. And it took me 3 years, but I finally found my way to do that, to turn here's the thing, it's I would think that if I did a painting and I made an addition of paintings, that's gratuitous. It's there's a single painting, but I found a way to get these additions using the training data. And I love it. It just makes sense with my art, and it gets everyone that wants to be into it. It's really cool.
So what does your family think about this?
Yeah, my daughter, I have a second grade daughter. She loves how colorful these BitCans are. And my teenage sons, they're more into this, they're more into trading card games. They don't play them. They don't understand NFTs yet. So, and I try and get into it, but that's sort of I would say that's one of the influences here is they right now they're getting into the Dragon Ball trading card game, which is really cool, and they collect and play those. And I've always been into trading card games and comic books from when everyone else was from childhood. And these BitCans, I see a potential to have something like a menagerie, like a Pokemon menagerie, these are the skull GANs. Next one is going to be the crypto GANs. After that, we'll do like, I think, I've heard ideas of Halloween GANs, where, like, again, more crypto culture. But you wouldn't love alien GAN, zombie GAN, like little references and acknowledgments of all the other successful crypto things. Skulls just seem to be the most obvious to me because of everyone, how important skulls are just in general art, from Damien Hirst to crypto art.
Right.
It's just everywhere there's skulls. So that's going to be good for the first series. Take it off.
Wow. So I love that idea. Yeah, and I love your forward thinking, kind of like, how this is more than just like, okay, the BitCans was done, like that's it, we're on to something else. It's kind of like a saga of a story of, okay, how does it evolve next? What's the next flavor? How does it of just keep getting different and possibly more advanced, and like just testing different waters with it? It's cool to me.
Thanks. And I love the self-referential, anything that's self-referential to crypto. I love, so like, I love like inside references, like if I, for example, if I did a zombie GAN that had alien GANs, it would obviously be a reference to punks, and everyone that was into punks would realize it immediately, so I do enjoy that, and maybe that's why I was thinking of this transformation from AI artists to crypto artists. I talked to all my AI artist friends, which are doing amazing work, and they're talking about the latest breakthroughs and how they're making more like a brain. And they asked me what I'm doing. I was like, oh, I just made a bunch of GANs and I gave them traits. Like they have rarity traits, and they'll like just look at me crazy. But for some reason, it's more interesting. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, just like same with Fidenzas and other art blocks. The rarity traits are awesome. That is interesting. That's something we'll figure out. It's something completely new to crypto, and maybe that's why it's so interesting, because it's completely new. And there you go. I just answered our questions. Like, like all of us that had the appeal of collecting cars when we were kids, those were our first art collections, and here we are willing to like, are able to extend that to like another set of art collections. Now these are portraits of my family. I have this thing. I have some weird rules that I put on myself. One is I don't make additions. The others is I don't paint people unless they have a sitting, because I feel like it's a violation of privacy. Like for example, when Hackathon and X-Cupping were all like, starting up on Super, I can't tell you how many requests I got to paint a portrait of Vitaly Buterin, and I just never felt it was right. And so I never really had an angle to get into the crypto art scene, because I did portraits, meaning, like do crypto art, while Hackathon was doing self-referential work, talking about crypto art, and then like Prometheus was putting Bitcoin symbols in his work, Ethereum symbols. I never found a new angle that was explained to me. He's like, oh, why don't you paint crypto celebrities? And I just never felt comfortable doing it without their permission. So I would try and get their permission, and I would never hear back from them, and so I just never did it. And that's why I have so many portraits of my family. So many portraits, because they'll go to me all they want, all I want.
It's so cool to me. So, I mean, I guess for SuperRare going forward, are you going to continue to sell the digitalized paintings going forward?
Yeah, I think going forward, things always changes. I really like this model where I'm going to make either 64, I don't know what number of training data, but I'm going to make them so that anyone can get them. And I'm going to have one on SuperRare that was made from all the training data. And that's going to be the model going forward.
Is there any area of this? I mean, because the BitCan kind of saga, as you've said, what the different editions of that look like, and then you have the Cloud Painter here, where you're doing these paintings and then digitalize them. Is there any other area that you haven't done yet that you want to explore and you think might be a potential coming up?
No, I limit myself to portraits, and like even the BitCans are portraits, right?
Right.
I limit myself to portraits. There's a lot of reasons for that, but no, not. I think BitCans was just born like recently, so I think I'm going to be busy with that for a while. But I'll tell you, the appeal of portraits to me is when you look at AI art and you look at robotic art, filming art with robots, it's very easy to take a robot and have it fling paint to make abstract art. And the challenge is to get a likeness, to like have it have the robot work in these narrow bounds where it has to get abstract versus the photo, right? So it's a little abstract, but it also has to say, and it also has to capture a likeness. So the person says, "Oh, I see myself." And also, and then the third most hardest thing is it has to be a flattering photo. The person can't look at themselves as monstrous, and it's hard. And because it's hard, you get some really cool results, and I learn a lot. And so that's why I do portraits, so you can recognize something in there.
Right. That's fascinating. I've never thought of that. The connection of finding something similar within the art, yet it's different, is so captivating. And when I think back to the BitCans, especially, I think part of what gets me and pulls me in is trying to, when you lose it, when it's a
Yeah.
blur and there's nothing there, and then you start to see it form back. It's like, oh, there it is. Like, for some
Yeah.
reason, that's very inviting and intriguing to me.
I still wonder, like, I don't know if I mentioned this already, is with GANs and how, like, these are imagining skulls, and when you close your eyes and imagine a skull, do they form in your head like this? It's so hard to understand how we think, but I sort of feel like it sort of does, or at least part of it does. And like, it's almost like we're seeing our brains process, and I wonder if that's why it's so hypnotizing. I mean, Deep Dream is another example of a Google project artist that, like, it looks like dreams, so we love it because it's
Right.
something familiar about how that's working, and we don't understand it. But yeah, thanks. I got luck. I'm really happy with these.
They turned out amazing. I mean, just out of this world amazing. And I do think what we'll see here is, I'm hoping that more and more people, find this, your drops, in your Discord grow, more people put attention to this, because, and again, and for full disclosure, I own nothing. I have no pieces. This is purely me finding something that I think is cool. And there's a spark inside me that it just gets excited about this stuff. And I don't know if it's because of, like, closing the eyes and imagining the GANs and the tech and all that, but it's just exciting to see this kind of art now be art, like, that people can purchase, and it's normal. And I mean, who would have thought we'd be having a conversation at this point about your next collection, and knowing that you're going to have hundreds of people that want to own it, and it being their prize piece. And it's a big GAN, it's AI, and it's animated, and it's just wild to me. It's a brand new medium.
Oh, thanks, man. Wow, this is my most successful project ever. Just in terms of engagement and how much fun I'm having with it.
So what was it like? What was it like? I guess, and, I know we're running like the 50-minute mark here. What was it like, setting up the Discord and now having like a community? Like, did you ever have that kind of a community before, or is it brand new to you?
It's new to me, and they're so awesome. And yeah, I've heard Discord described as a number of things. I've heard Discord described as like the pub, while Twitter is the bulletin board. I've heard Discord described as, I've heard Twitter as like, centralized social media, and Instagram and Discord as decentralized social media. I never understood what it meant by decentralized. I love it. I've totally converted to Discord in the last month. I find myself on there constant, not just the BitCans channel, all the others, Colby's, Angie Taylor's. It is kind of crowded, but the CryptoPunks one, that's probably the noisiest channel. But whatever, I find it amazing, and then the fact that the community is so generous, and I can't believe how nice they are, because during the drop, for example, it was very competitive. There was like 500 people on the whitelist, and I didn't realize this. I should have planned it better, and I'll plan it better next time. But there's only 64 available, and everyone was just cheering each other on. It was like a lottery system, and I didn't see anyone get upset. I saw generosity, like I saw someone get 2 men or get a second, quickly listed it, super reasonable price, gets sold. I just saw. It's just cool. It's just cool to have these people helping each other out, talking about it. There's puzzles behind these BitCans, so a bunch of groups have formed inside the Discord to solve the puzzles. Yeah, it's it's something else I'm taking in and appreciating. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
it is certainly an exciting time for everybody. And it's cool to see some of the, like, your background, like you've had, such a long kind of like evolution of your career, end up here talking to me is pretty cool, but like end up here with this community of people that are, you know, there are people probably as young as, 10, 12, 13 that are, like your art and supporting you. And then there's, people as old as, their late 60s and whatnot, I'm sure, in your Discord supporting you. It's just this, and they're from all over the world. It's just so cool to me. And I think for
that's
all artists,
the fact that the Discord never sleeps, and that this is like, it's like, I love what's happening in SuperRare with SuperRare Spaces. I'll always, SuperRare is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me ever in my life. If I say it's like, what's the one luckiest thing? It was SuperRare. And their Spaces is so ambitious to include anyone that wants to be in it, the community thing. The fact that they took this, it's a $1 billion corporation. They're like, we don't want to be a $1 billion corporation. We want to be a DAO, and they just turn it all over. It's just, that's insane to me. But it just shows you how much they respect the ideals of the space. And I've never seen anything like this. It's like, it's the word revolution is overused, but like what's happening here is, I've been an AI artist for a long time, like 15, 16 years. Every month I would make multiple applications to galleries just to get attention. But no one was ever into AI art, especially back in 2005 and 2010. No one cared. So I didn't take it personally, but I'll just keep on trying. So when the time does come, it never, even until the point that then when SuperRare comes, it's like all of a sudden artists don't have to like deal with this rejection anymore. You find a community, you find a bunch of like-minded artists, which I think is what SuperRare Spaces is going to turn into. And we decentralize the art market. It's unbelievable. Like I said earlier, I didn't realize that was happening. Hackatow, I think, was the first too in the early SuperRare group. Cody was the first. Matt King was another one that realized what was happening. And I can't believe I was lucky enough to like be a part of that. I would say it was luck. Yeah.
I think it was just luck.
It's so much of it. Like, yeah, I think I'll put it this way. I think if not one of you, any other artists out there, was lucky enough to like stumble into SuperRare in 2018, you would be in a similar situation. But here's what's the cool thing. The cool thing is we are still so early that we're lucky to hear about it right now.
Yep.
And I don't know how to emphasize that. Like I was thinking, I'm in a show in India, an AI show in India right now, for example, and they had to cut it off from NFTs because they're like, no cryptocurrency. So you got a country with 1 billion people that doesn't do cryptocurrency. Imagine when they discover it, it's going to explode. Same with China's being limited. So like right now, I always think of it this way. Think of all your friends outside of the metaverse that are not into crypto. And I would say my physical friends that I walk and talk to every day, I would say one other person out of 100 is into crypto. It's going to explode. As soon as it's 4 people out of 100, the whole market just doubled.
Right.
Imagine when it's half of the people, you got 10 times this market. And then imagine when inevitably, and it is inevitable, everyone's into it. It's going to be 100 times bigger than it is today.
Fascinating.
I just totally believe that. And that's why I'm not going to speak anymore on that because it'll start sounding like, yeah. That's why I think,
we're early. And I think people need to understand that. I think there's people coming in now, or even people that are learning about NFTs and like, well, I missed it. Like, look at crypto.
No.
I missed it. You're completely wrong. You are so early. So early.
Yeah. Well, think in 50 years, they're not going to say, hey, was this artist in 2018 or 2021? Now they're going to be like, no, he was this is one of those 2020 artists. If you get in now, you were at the beginning.
Yep.
Absolutely. So that's like, so everyone can be lucky. And that was, it's awesome.
It's awesome. Well, I have a few final questions for you that I asked most of my guests just to get an idea and get a little bit deeper into your mind. We'll go through those and then we'll have some wrapping up thoughts if you have any. My first question to you is, what was the last thing you bought? What was the last NFT you bought?
No, Angie Taylor's. She just did a portrait of Grace Jones. I bought it like yesterday. It's gorgeous. I don't know why I like Angie Taylor so much, other than the fact that it's just really honest, really beautiful very technically good. And if she makes a portrait, I can't resist it.
Wow.
So, I have to. The problem I have is I would buy so much that I have to put a limit on myself. So I limit it to portraits.
Okay.
And luckily, not everyone does portraits, so I can afford it to have a house.
You can afford to have a physical
and
real
it's kept me out of
assets.
art blocks. It's kept me out of art blocks. So many times I want to go in, they're not portraits. You're not allowed to buy them. So
The day Art Blocks comes out with a portraits project, though, you're in trouble.
yeah, but yeah, I'll be in there. Yeah, I'll buy it. So,
That's great. Who's somebody on Twitter that you think is a must follow that everybody should be following?
No, I love the museums. Museum of Crypto, MOCTA, any of those that are like, because I think those museums, they do these shows, they do updates, and also it's like, like what I love about the Museum of Crypto Art, for example, is what they just got established. You can be a part of it. You can go get the MOCA. This is the birth of something that will one day be equivalent to the Louvre in prestige and stature. Just like Harvard's like most prestigious. I think Harvard, maybe it's the second oldest college in the States. But just the older an institution, the more prestigious it is typically, because it just has the early stuff. And I see that as I see MOCA, and I see MOCA as that. I see a bunch of the other museums just becoming cultural institutions. And it's kind of cool to be at the beginning of them, especially if you can get some of their tokens and participate with them. That's crazy.
It's interesting. Great answer, actually. Great answer. Hopefully everybody takes him up on that advice and goes and follows those accounts. I'm curious, looking at the current landscape in the market right now, where do you see us, in this moment? Where do you see us in 3 years from now? And I know it's hard. It's always a question that people go, well, I don't know, like we could be anywhere. But where do you genuinely see where the NFT market could be in 3 years?
I foresee a crash, but just like with the ICOs, everyone will recover from the crash. So I see at least one crash between now and 3 years. And what I always do is I just make sure that I'm positioned enough to make it through the crash.
Yep.
Like that's it. And come out the other side roughly where I was, or at least half of what I was before the crash.
Right.
I see it because of the crash a little more mature. I see. I think one-of-ones are going to take over. I think additions are good, but then I think they're arbitrary. And like, for example, like I'll talk about an artist I love, an artwork I love is Dissolution, the artwork from Xcopy I bought and I had and I just sold to. But there's Dissolution that it has. That was a one-of-one, and then on Maker's Place there was 100 in different color. And when I talked to Xcopy, we didn't speak about this specific piece, but very little effort between making a one-of-one, put on SuperRare, and an additional 100 put it on another thing. There's just no difference for the artist.
Right.
So I feel like additions are arbitrary rarity. And so I see 3 years from now, everyone will realize that, and it'll just be one-of-ones will be important. And I include Cadenzas and Art Blocks as one-of-ones because at least they went through the effort. There is a reason why there's 10,000 of those.
Right.
But yeah, that's the other thing. I see it as, the toughest question is, will it be accepted by the mainstream yet? I don't know. Maybe. What do you think? Like, if you say we're at 0.1% of people know about this, what do you think? 10%?
Yeah. I think potentially more. I think we're going to go kind of parabolic in some sense at some point over the next 3 years. I don't think we've hit a parabolic moment yet, in my opinion. I think it's kind of been very linear, and I don't think we've hit that moment where it's just an implosion, and I mean a true implosion of money into the space. I think it's been pretty linear, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. It has been linear, even when there's been blow-ups. I've had friends come to me and ask me how to get into it. They'll put like $200 or $300 into it, right? And then they'll inevitably do either mediocre, their piece of art won't triple in price, and then they'll get out.
Yep.
And so with crypto, for instance, oh man, this is tough. with the recent Doge stuff, I had a friend just put a lot of money into Doge. I said, no, by the time you heard of it, it's too late.
Yep.
Like, like if you were, and then they get burned and then they get out.
Right.
So maybe in 3 years, it's, you're right, we haven't. I'm thinking about the jumps in SuperRare, like, when it went to the next level.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
and,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well.
There haven't been big jumps. It's always been linear. It's gone really crazy in the last 6 months, though.
It has. I mean, there's mornings where I wake up and floors are, double-digit ETH difference from the night before. I mean, obviously there are projects that have gone exponential. They've blown up, but I just think the overall market, and as an overall, just has not seen that, like, hey, every single person I talk to and interact on a daily basis, or a large percentage of them is looking and trying to get into this, and you cannot, like, punks are not touchable, Bored Ape Yacht Club is not touchable, art blocks as a general, anything that is affordable to anybody, with the however many millionaires we have in the world, that's not touchable. So anything that happened 2021 and back, being sought after as this, like, early kind of into the ecosystem stuff, I still don't think it's gone to where it should go technically. And I was having this conversation about Chromie Squiggles this morning, where we're seeing prices for like fuzzies and I think like 30, and the normal stuff's in the teens, maybe low 20s now. And we're like, how much higher can it go? And I was like, I don't know. But like, we're like, when we start to think and realize that, like, well, who wants to own these, like, technically like one of ones of a Genesis project? We haven't seen the masses really come. So
I know the Visa thing, the Visa fund, like, skyrocketed. The funks, when you say how I can still go, why can't it go as high as the punks? I don't see why not.
Right.
It's just the emotional attachment. I mean, how many people out there, like, I have one punk, and I love the joke that's as good as owning no punks, because you can't sell it ever. So anyone that has one punk is just gonna hold it forever, at least until they die and their family's like, why the hell do you hold on to this? Let's pay it. Let's sell it.
Right.
So
right.
10,000 is a ridiculous. 10,000 is a very, very, very small number when you're thinking of international numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's true. The worst number of punks you could possibly own is not 0. It is 1, because you can't sell.
Yeah.
You can't sell.
I mean, even if I'm trading, I'd be nervous. I wouldn't trade up until I had 2, and it's hard to get the liquidity to have 2, at once, and then sell the other one, because they don't sell as fast if you want to get the right price.
Right. So, exactly. Final question, and then we'll let you get on. I know it's late there. What is one thing you wish you knew when you started that you wish people that are getting into the space now knew?
Oh, when I started, I just wish I was more comfortable in my skin. Like, I didn't think, this is me being more open, I didn't think of myself as belonging in the crypto art scene, because I was an AI artist. But that was silly. So I mean, and the coolest thing about this whole crypto art scene is it is inclusive of everyone, especially the people that don't fit into the general art world. And the cool thing about that is the general art world, the mainstream art world, like New York, LA, is brutal. And it's not just brutal, it's rigged in a way that you can't rig a decentralized system.
Right.
And I love it. And I love it, and one of my favorite things to do in crypto art is to watch traditional galleries try and get into crypto art and fail. And I see that a lot, because they try and put their rules on it, and no one here wants to play by their rules. So I would say just feel comfortable. It doesn't matter whatever you are. And then the other one is slowly pace your stuff out, and don't be discouraged if it doesn't sell. Like, that's it. And that worked for me. That's something I got lucky with, just because I couldn't make a lot of digital art. I was slowed down by my robot, and I'll never regret that. Like, I don't have a lot of art out there that I wish I could have back.
Right.
So once you mint it, it's gone.
Once you mint it, it's gone. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Well, everybody, hope you enjoyed this conversation with Pindar. I'm going to link his not Instagram, his Twitter. I'll link his Discord. I'll link his collections all below. My
Thanks
big
everyone for
request
listening.
is that you go and give him a follow, join his Discord, check out his art, just give him something. Like, he's such a cool guy. I feel pretty much honored to be able to talk to you today. And I'm really excited to see what you do next. And thank you for your time. We're all excited.
Oh, it's been great. Thanks. And thanks to everyone for listening. Also, thanks to everyone supporting the BitCans project. That is unbelievable. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm having so much fun with it. I really appreciate it. Oh,
I love
thanks
it.
a lot.
I love it. Well, awesome. Everybody, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.